After 10 years of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals, Canada's economy is weaker and more reliant than ever. Especially, and we've lost $500 billion because of the high taxes here. Mr. Carney supported carbon taxes on Canada while he invested in American coal. He opposed the Northern Gateway pipeline in Canada while he bought pipelines abroad. Yesterday, his newly appointed Environment Minister reaffirmed that the Carney Liberal government will impose an energy production cap, which the parliamentary budget officer just confirmed will cost 50,000 jobs. This proves that Carney is still faithful to his radical, keep it in the ground, net zero insanity. Nothing will change. In fact, it will get worse. And that will be good for rich global elites like him and the multinational corporations that profit off of Canada's weakness. We know that Mr. Carney's company abuses workers. They bust unions. They invested in companies that busted unions. He also, in a very tragic case, one of the insurance arm of Carney's company, Brookfield, profited by denying the insurance claims of coal miners dying from black lung. These are workers who, by breathing in dust in the ground, became extremely sick, and when they went to get the insurance that they had paid for, they were denied by Carney's, the company that does the insurance for Brookfield. They profited off that. In fact, this company lost in court. The court found that the company was wrong. Now, Mr. Carney needs to tell us, is he still invested in a company that abuses workers' rights and denies coal miners and their widows the benefits that they deserve? Mark Carney will never stand up for the working people. He will only stand up for the millionaire and billionaire global elites. That is all that he has ever done. He's only done two things in Canada since he came back from Europe. One, move his headquarters out of Canada to New York, taking jobs from our country to the United States, just like Trump wanted. And two, acting as Trudeau's economic advisor, supporting all of his policies, no matter what he tries to tell you now. But just wait, you'll see, he'll be copying my next announcement. It will be, what, about 3 or 4 days, he'll be ripping off the announcement that I made today as he pretends to support the things that I stand for 30 days before an election. The choice in the next election is very clear. One is to bring jobs home, the other is to ship jobs abroad. One is to bring real change, the other is to cling on to power for a fourth consecutive term. One is to cut taxes, and the other is to raise them. One puts Canada first, the other puts Carney first. And the question in the next election will be further, can Canada afford a fourth term of the Liberals, led by Mark Carney, who, working with Trudeau, made Canada weaker and poorer, and is too weak and conflicted to stand up to Donald Trump? Or do we think it's time for a real change with a Conservative government that will stand up to Trump from a position of strength, unleash growth, bring home jobs, axe taxes, build homes, secure our border, rebuild our military, and put Canada first? We need a change. We need to take back control of our economy. We need to stand by the people who build stuff, dig stuff, move stuff, make stuff. That's why common sense Conservatives will always stand with our employers and our unions right across this country to unleash the great Canadian promise that Albino Greco experienced when he arrived here back in 1973. The promise that was made and kept to my wife Anna and I, and the promise that we will restore for all Canadians. In a country where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, where hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful home, on a safe street, protected by brave troops under a proud flag. Canada first. Let's bring it home.
Thank you. We'll now take questions from the floor. If you can,
Rahim Ahmed, National Post. I guess welcome home to Nepean. I know your riding used to cut into the area before it was redistricted. So speaking of homecomings, Mark Carney was in Edmonton yesterday to meet with Danielle Smith. Shortly after the meeting, Smith put out a list of demands for the next Prime Minister, including, among other things, ending the prohibition on single-use plastics. She said if these demands were not met within 6 months of the new mandate, there would be a national unity crisis. Are you willing to commit right now to meeting the demands that Premier Smith has enumerated?
I think Premier Smith's demands are very reasonable. You'll have to see the rest of our platform roll out in due course, but she was making clear that Mark Carney's using weasel words. He's pretending that he suddenly, 30 days before an election, changed his entire radical net zero, keep it in the ground ideology. Mr. Carney, I can't even believe he would have the audacity to show up in Edmonton. He opposed the Northern Gateway Pipeline in a committee testimony while his company was buying pipelines in the Middle East. That pipeline would have created jobs for Edmontonians. It would have been a boom for Northern Alberta. And all of the money that would have rushed into Edmonton would have created opportunities. And he opposed it. It's on the record. He supports carbon taxes in Canada while he invests in American coal. Yesterday, his environment minister confirmed that the energy cap will stay in place if the Liberals are in office. So, despite the fact that they're trying to put on this mask last minute before the election, make no mistake, a fourth Liberal term will be exactly like the previous three. It has been the lost Liberal decade. And this is the question Canadians are going to have to answer. Do we want a fourth term of Liberals who block resources, tax our people, drive up our costs, unleash crime in our community, and make us weak and defenseless facing the Americans? Or do we want to put Canada first for a change by axing taxes, unleashing our resources, building homes, locking up criminals, rebuilding our military, standing up to the Americans, and putting Canada first?
Next question.
Good morning, Davis Legree from iPolitics. Earlier this week, Mark Carney added Mark Wiseman to his list of advisors on Canada-U.S. relations. Mark Wiseman was the co-founder of the Century Initiative, a lobby group that wants to bring Canada's population to 100 million people by 2100. Can I get your reaction to that, and what do you think, how do you feel about the idea of rapidly expanding Canada's population to reach 100 million by the end of the century?
Well, it shows that the Liberals would be no different in a fourth term than they were in the first three. The Liberals destroyed our immigration system in their first three terms in power. They followed a radical globalist ideology of massive, uncontrolled population growth that put strain on our housing market, our health care, and our job market. Now, corporate elites like Mr. Wiseman and Mr. Carney loved it because it drives wages down. It takes jobs away from our workers in numbers that we can't replace by growth in the job market. But it's terrible for our working class. And by bringing on Mr. Wiseman, it shows that Mark Carney supports the Liberal Century Initiative to nearly triple our population to 100 million people. We voted against the Century Initiative in the House of Commons, and the Liberals voted for the Century Initiative unanimously. That is the radical Liberal agenda on immigration. We will get back to moderate, reasonable levels of immigration. Our country was built by common sense immigration, but we need to ensure we grow the housing supply, our health care, and our jobs faster than we grow our population. And so I will reject the Century Initiative and get back to common sense immigration that brings people to Canada in numbers that we can hire, that we can house, and that we can care for. That was the best immigration system in the world, and we're going to bring it home again.